Greetings, friends and fellow freelancers. Welcome back to another episode of Tabletop Mercenary. I've talked about a lot of problems in publishing and marketing over the years since I started this show now. And I like to think I've given folks some insight into my experience and probably helped a couple of people out there who wanted to get into games, who wanted to get into writing, but weren't entirely sure what pitfalls and traps to avoid. And this week I wanted to talk about something that has, well, prevented some people from making anything at all, and it has utterly caught other people by surprise because they didn't think it would happen to them. And that is, in short, if you make something, no matter what it is, if you just have an opinion on the internet, if we're honest, you are going to find haters. That's just the way it is. And you cannot allow that to stop you from making things. On the other hand, it is important to prepare yourself and to understand what it is that's happening when you go out on the internet, when you go out in public even, and you try to show people the things that you made, when you try to talk about your game, when you try to talk about your books, etc., etc. There is unfortunately going to be people who just want to throw tomatoes, and it's important to understand why that is and how to deal with that in a way that won't hurt you, won't hurt your brand, but will save your sanity at the end of the day. Now, to get all the way back to the beginning. Well, in the beginning, there was light, and it was generally considered a bad idea, but a little bit past that. With the dawn of the internet, as it became popular, as everyone out there really got online and it became a part of our everyday lives, we started monetizing things, and by we, I mean social media. Websites want people, they want traffic, they want interaction, they want people to use their sites, because the more they use them, the more conversations happen, the more time people spend on their sites, and the more time you spend on a site, whether you're doom scrolling, commenting, having conversations and whatnot, the more people will see the ads on those sites, the more money the site will make overall. And of course, the more people that are there, the more they can boast that millions upon millions of people use our site every day. Traffic is the reason they want engagement. That's pretty basic. That's something we all sort of academically understand about how the internet works. However, what lots of websites have done is they have monetized creators and posters who get engagement. The problem is that they didn't really stop and ask what sort of engagement we want. This is one of those things of there's no such thing as bad publicity. We don't care why you're on the site, as long as you're on the site and you're using it. As a result, we have things like clickbait, rage bait, etc., etc. Flame wars run rampant, and the people who start these things are the ones who get monetarily rewarded for it. Because it doesn't matter if the people involved are having an academic discussion of the history of a particular genre, or if they're having the equivalent of a textual screaming match. They're on the site, and that's all the site cares about, therefore, money for the people who started the conflict. Lots of folks academically know this. I'm not saying anything secretive or new. However, this has been going on for so long that it has shaped the way people act online. When you add in the invisible man factor, in that it's really easy to say whatever horrible thing you want and just let it fly, when the person you're saying it to is not close enough to punch you in the face, a lot of time people lose their inhibitions and they just kind of say whatever terrible thing comes to their mind. And there are some people for whom this is genuinely fun. This is how they unwind at the end of the day. They find someone and start a fight with them for whatever reason. Now, we can talk about whether those are healthy things and how to deal with those at a later time, but my point is, this is the landscape that you are coming onto, because, especially if you're a small creator, interacting with people on the internet is basically how you're going to market your game. It's how you're going to get people to try it out. It's how people are going to find out who you are and what you do. And because of that, you're going to find a lot of unhinged nonsense. And this is before we get into folks who assume you're talking about one thing when you're actually talking about something else, but didn't actually engage with your content enough before they started a fight. This is going to be your everyday, and I don't want to sugarcoat that for anyone. It's the equivalent of being a cashier, of some people who come through your line are going to be perfectly pleasant. They're just here to get the thing that they want and to move on with their day. And there's going to be some people who want to scream at you because they've had a bad day and you happen to be there. What you need to do as the creator is to avoid as much of this as you humanly can, while making sure that you understand how to interact with the stuff that you can't dodge. As the old internet lore goes, don't read the comments. I generally try to hold to that, and I will absolutely state that is an important thing to do. If you can get someone else to read your comments for you and only bring the important ones to your attention, do that if you can. It saves you a lot of time and energy. But lots of the time, if you're making something, you have to read the comments, you have to interact with people, you have to, well, answer questions, you have to settle debates, you have to make sure that they know you are listening, otherwise they know they're not interacting with the creator, so why are we here? A good example is this YouTube channel. It's not mine, I've said this several times before, but I try to keep up on what people are commenting and who's saying what on the videos, but there are so many of them, and I am not on the account, I don't have access to it. So I trust Adrian Kennelly to read through the comments and to bring important ones to my attention, so that I can address them if they're not something he can address. Great working relationship, highly recommend that. However, if someone were to go to my social media pages, go to where I post on Reddit, if they go to where I run my blog, I try to stay up on those comments, because a lot of the time I have people asking questions. They want page numbers, or they're wondering whether or not there are alternate systems for a particular game or supplement that I've released. And I have to tell them either yes, no, maybe, or perhaps if enough people are interested, we could do that. And then there are some people who just want to scream that they don't like this thing I've made. They think this game is stupid, that, this entire genre is dumb and shouldn't exist, and why do people like me keep writing things for it? And when you run into that, these are not people who are here to have an actual debate. They're not here in good faith. They don't actually want an answer. There's nothing you can say that will make them happy, because they didn't come here to get an answer to why you chose to write for this particular game. They don't care why your book is in this particular genre. They don't even care about why you continue to write a blog instead of having your own personal website. You can tell by the tone, the language they use, they're here to start a fight. They're here to say something unkind to you. And my best advice for this is do not interact with it if you can. Because, yes, it's nice to have engagement. It is kind of funny that in some ways, people who get really mad at you for the things that you make can inadvertently help you by pushing you up in the algorithm, by making more people see you, by rage sharing your content to all of their friends and family. And yes, that is funny. But don't poke the bear, don't feed the trolls. Generally speaking, it's important for your long-term health, mentally, physically, and for your brand to not engage with that sort of thing. If you see someone who's just spoiling for a fight in your comments, if you're getting messages from someone who just wants to spew their negative opinions at you, don't interact with it. They're trying to get a reaction out of you, and I know this sounds very much like a teacher telling you just ignore the bully and they'll go away. A lot of the time they actually will, because on the internet, what they're looking for is to get a reaction. And if they're not getting a reaction, if their comments just keep getting deleted, if no one's bothering with them, if they get banned from the group that you run, if they get kicked out of your Discord, how much more time are they willing to invest in something that's not giving them what they want? If you starve a fire, the fire goes out. And there are a lot of folks out there, particularly folks who don't have the bingo card of privileges that I was born with. I want to acknowledge that. I'm a middle-aged white guy who came from a middle-class background. There are so many things that I do not have to deal with. I know femme-presenting folk who just have people shouting at them because they are femme on the internet, or because, how dare they, as a woman, try to write a book. I am not trans, I am not gay, I'm not, a person of color. There are so many things that I just get to sidestep. And so I don't want to tell people who are dealing with those situations where they can become genuinely dangerous, where there are people who will just get obsessed over people from a certain subgroup who have the temerity to say a thing and take up space. As always, this is general advice from a marketing perspective. You know yourself and your life better than I do. Trust yourself, trust your instincts. but it is important for your peace of mind, if you can, to just avoid as much of this nonsense as possible. It's going to come your way regardless of what you do. There is no way you can make everyone happy, just like there is no way to get every single person into your audience. You know, if you write a book, there's going to be people who don't like the genre that book was written for. If you make an RPG, there's going to be people who refuse to play that particular mechanical system, or who don't like that genre, or who only play books they can read on their lunch break. You can't please everyone, and it is an unfortunate reality that there are a lot of folks out there who don't understand the difference between this is not a thing for me, and this is a thing I need to start a fight over. And it's just one of those things you have to deal with. Do your very best to handle it with grace if you can, and if it's a really egregious topic, as I've had a couple times happen in my comment section, don't be afraid to say what's on your mind. Don't be afraid to stick up for your beliefs, things that are core to you as a creator, core to your brand as a creator, because at that point, who are you driving away? You know, if someone comes to you, and we're going to use a really hyperbolic example, and they say that your game's not misogynist enough, your game's not racist enough for them, it's not whatever horrible thing enough for them. Do you really want people who, you know, would see you telling this person to piss off into the sun and think, oh, I don't want to play anything that guy makes. He's really aggressive towards people like me. Yeah. To use another example, Wolfenstein is about shooting Nazis. If you have a problem with that, this is not a game for you, and we are not going to miss your business. So generally speaking, my last piece of advice is it is really easy to feel vitriol at people who are trying to provoke you, especially when it happens day in, day out. And it is a thing folks who follow me on my various social medias have heard me talk about, of, you know, the first customer who comes to you on your line and is a jerk, you can usually ignore. When it's the 70th or 80th of them that day, that might be enough to get the fuse all the way down to the powder keg. So take time, back up, and the most important thing you can do as a creator is learn to take a deep breath, utter the mystical incantation, no one asked you, and move on with your life. Because there are very few times in this particular arena that you will regret being quiet. There are a lot of times, though, that you will regret having opened your mouth and let fly with something that you really wanted to say to that person that you probably shouldn't have. And as the saying goes, the internet is forever. Even if you thought better of it and got rid of it as quickly as you could, chances are good that someone saw it, someone might have screenshotted it, and it will come back to haunt you. So that's my advice for dealing with the haters this week, and unfortunately, you just can't please some people. There's always going to be people who want you to stop doing what you're doing, sometimes for no reason other than they're not doing anything and it makes them mad that you're working hard and achieving. So just stay focused on where you're going, try to build a community who actually wants to support you, find fans if you can, and just continue on, because as they say, the best revenge is living well, and the best way to really get haters angry is to just keep doing stuff regardless of what they say to you. Just move on. As always, if the criticism is always in the same vein and it's coming from a lot more people than just those who want to shout at you, maybe listen to it, consider it. But if it's just people who are clearly spoiling for a fight, they don't even seem to know what it is you make, they're just mad for no specific reason, they're not here for you. They're not actually mad about your game, they don't care about your book, they haven't read it, they haven't watched your video, they haven't played anything. They're just being mad. So let them. And move on with your life. Do something that makes you feel good. Do something that relaxes you. And remember, save your energy for where it's necessary. Because it is, you need a lot of it in order to get any of this done. You don't have time for arguments in the comments. You have another chapter to write and another mechanic to work out. But as always, that's my advice for this week. No particular reason why this was on my mind. But if you have any particular idea, things you want me to talk about regarding tabletop RPG publishing, if you have questions about publishing in general, if you have any particular issues you've wondered about how games are made, how they're sold, how creators live, leave those down in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. And if the question is complicated enough, or the answer is complicated enough, it might get its own episode going forward. So, as always, like, share, subscribe, do all those things, hit the bell if you haven't, and until next time, happy gaming, everybody. First and foremost, thank you for staying to the end of this episode of Tabletop Mercenary. If there's a question you have about being an RPG creator, please don't hesitate to put it in the comments below so I can address it in a future episode. If you want to help me keep the lights on and keep this show going, then please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and giving it a share on your own social media pages to help boost the signal. Lastly, if you really enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a tip by buying me a Ko-fi or becoming a Patreon patron at the links in the video description below. You'll find me on both sites under the name The Literary Mercenary.